Welcome to Spirit Sisters, where we gather around the virtual hearth to share sacred stories about our life journeys. I'm Karina Machado, and it's my life's passion to share stories that rekindle hope and remind us that life and love exist beyond the physical. Before I introduce my guest, I want to acknowledge that today's conversation touches on the loss of a child and the ongoing bond of love between mother and daughter. If this is a story that resonates with you, please take care of yourself as you listen. Today I'm joined by Rachel Stewart, the beautiful heart behind the Instagram page 411_together, a space that has become a refuge for so many navigating grief, love and connection that doesn't end. Rachel is a mum, and like so many of the women I've had the privilege of speaking with on Spirit Sisters, her motherhood didn't end with her daughter Kenadie's passing. It changed form. Rachel's evolving relationship with Kenadie comes through wondrous signs and synchronicities, messages, and the comfort that she received from these encounters inspired Rachel and her husband Shane to launch 411 Together, which is a space for others to share their experiences of ongoing connection with a loved one. In our conversation, we explore what it means to remain together beyond the veil. We talk about the early days of grief, the first moments of sensing that love was still present, and the beautiful ways Kenadie continues to remind her family that she's with them. This is a profound and tender conversation that, like so many of the stories we explore here, invites us to consider that love may not be bound by the limits that we once imagined. Now, before we launch into my conversation with Rachel Stewart, I'd like to share that we'll be sharing stories like this and other stories of ongoing connection in the inaugural Gathering Around the Virtual Hearth Spirit Sisters online retreat. It's a day-long retreat online on Saturday, the 16th of May, and I'd be delighted if you would join us there for a day of conversation and connection and just remembering the spirit and the love that is with us always. I'll have all the links in the description for you to join us, and for now, with no further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Rachel Stewart. Hi Rachel, welcome to Spirit Sisters.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat.
It's so lovely to have you. From the moment that I discovered your page on Instagram, and I will share all the links in the show notes, it's called 411 Together, I thought, oh my goodness, I would so love to speak with Rachel and have her share her beautiful story for our audience. And I know that people are going to absolutely, love and enjoy our conversation today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thanks, Rachel. So I think a good place to start would be for those of us in the audience who aren't familiar with you and your story. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, your family, and just let's start there, I think.
Okay, that sounds great. My name's Rachel Stewart. My husband Shane and I own something, or I guess started something called 411, and it's underscored together, but really the main name of it is 411. And we didn't know what it was going to be when we started it, so that's kind of bizarre. But the name just came to us, the meaning behind it came to us, all in honor of our daughter, Kenadie, who's across the veil. So she passed away in 2018 from brain cancer. And then around 2020, this feeling started kind of coming up in our hearts where we felt nudged to start something that my husband got a download that it was going to be called 411. And from there, it just evolved. But it was interesting, kind of the first time in my life that I did something, I kept taking steps towards something that I couldn't see. I couldn't see what it was going to turn into. I couldn't even really see, 2 steps ahead. I could barely see the next step, but I just kept feeling nudged to keep going. And it's unfolding in this really beautiful way. It's almost making me emotional just talking about it because it's so beautiful and it's just so much bigger than I could have ever dreamt of. And I know that it's all because of our daughter across the veil. So she's really the one guiding us, and she's the one that's kind of shining her light in front of us, and we're just following her, and I'm here for all of it. So that's where this all started and how it came about and kind of a little bit of our backstory.
Thank you. And as you share that, I think to myself, gosh, there's such power in a partnership. So you and your husband aligned wholeheartedly in this journey of bringing forth whatever it is that Kenadie is wanting you to bring forth. I just wanted to point that out, that it feels really powerful. And the other thing is, my goodness, like it's knowing a little bit about the grief journey from all of the hundreds of people who've shared their stories with me over the years. I think to myself, your little girl crosses the veil in 2018. In 2020, it's really not that long after, you begin
Mhm.
this extraordinary thing. Like, what a huge amount of faith in her and in what she's wanting you to move forward with, that you both demonstrated there. And how immensely challenging that journey must have also been, as well as rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to point out that that's when the nudge started. It's not when we launched. It
Okay,
took us a
yes,
while. And
yes,
looking back, that makes so much sense because,
yeah.
like you said, it was very early on. And what was neat though is that there was something for us to focus on, something for us to put purpose into, and or I guess to grow purpose from, which is I think what a lot of people crave when we go through something that hard and something that horrible is that if there can be some sort of a purpose that can come out of it. Not that, I would take my daughter back in a heartbeat. I would give 411 back if I could have her. So that's not what I'm saying, but it's very rewarding and healing on a really beautiful level that didn't exist before. It's just helped us along our healing journey in a new way. And I think a lot of people crave that is that's what, a lot of people start foundations in honor of their loved ones. And um, we just didn't know exactly what this was going to be. We felt like it wasn't a foundation. It just felt different, but we didn't know. But the cool thing was, and you mentioned it with the partnership that I have with my husband. So it all kind of came to me in this magical way. That's how it always happens is in a meditation or in a dream or something like that. And I just felt this nudge come and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to tell our story. And we were recluses after she passed. We really turned inward and we were barely talking to people in our own town, let alone thinking about sharing our story publicly. And this kind of magical experience happened where I felt my throat chakra just open wide. Just, it was like 1,000 pounds just came off of my throat, and I heard kind of in my mind that I needed to tell our story. And I kind of hemmed and hawed and thought, gosh, my husband's going to think this is kind of crazy. And so I went to him a couple hours later and told him about what happened. And he said, I feel that too. And he is really reserved and private man. So I was expecting him to go, I don't know about us sharing our story, but for him to say, no, I feel that too. And from the very beginning, he wanted to be a part of it. And he's been more of the behind the scenes part of it. And he's just now starting to kind of show up more on screen and make more videos with me and be more publicly by my side. And I'm really proud of him because for him, it was even harder than it was for me. And it was hard for me. So it's just become this really neat thing that we get to do together. And I know that he is supporting me in it. And that has been really nice for the both of us because when you're grieving the loss of a child, it's a very, obviously it's a big strain on a relationship. And to have something beautiful that we both get to pour our energy and our heart into and have each other to kind of bounce ideas off of. And it's just been a fun thing for us to do together. And I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful. And so, to backtrack a little for anybody who's not familiar, 411 Together is a platform that well, I've seen it on Instagram, but there are more permutations of it, which we can talk about. but where you and the community is invited to share stories of connecting with their loved ones across the veil. And it's lovely and it's vibrant and it's strong. 155,000 followers strong. That's no small feat, Rachel. Congratulations on creating
Thank you.
such a beautiful, loving space. So it's all about stories. Here on Spirit Sisters, we love stories. I was wondering if you could maybe get us into some of the stories, but I think let's start with you telling us a little bit about Kenadie first and who she is, and then maybe one of the first moments that told you that the connection between you and your beautiful little girl hadn't actually ended, rather it had transformed.
Sure. And I want to point out that I didn't know that when she passed. I was not raised spiritual in any sense. We didn't go to church, so there wasn't that sort of background in my life. And really, when it comes to more spiritual practices like meditating and energy healings and things like that, that was all very foreign to me, and I never did those before. And so when Kennedy passed, she was 10 years old. And when she was here on Earth, she was just the type of soul that you can tell she's an old soul. You can tell that she's really wise. She was like the kindest, just kind beyond her years. Like kids her age don't act like that. She just really focused on other people and loving everyone and including everyone. And she, on a regular basis, showed me how to live my life as an adult. And I am grateful now looking back that I told her that as she was doing things. I remember she would say something that was just so beautiful and I'd start to cry and she'd look at me like, what did I do wrong? And I remember she was maybe 8 and I said, you're just such a better human than I will ever be. I'm just so proud of you. It's just so incredible to witness. So I learned a lot from her in her 10 years here. And then she passed. It was so quick. She had cancer when she was 2, brain cancer. She had radiation treatment and surgery, and we thought that it was for 8 years, it was all good. And so we hoped that it was cured. And then on Christmas Eve of 2017, she got a headache, and I just knew. I knew, I looked at her, and there was just this knowing that not only did I know that the cancer came back, but I knew in my heart that was her last Christmas, which was terrifying. And a few days later, we found out that not only was the cancer back, but it was a new kind of brain cancer. And the kind that she now had, she couldn't even fight. There was nothing we could do about it. And we lost her a month later. So it was very quick, even though she had that history of cancer, we were not expecting this at all. And, so to go from this family of 4, because we have another child, she had a younger sister. And so we went from that to 3. And my husband and I, we didn't know what we believed in. So we didn't even feel connected to her from across the veil. We didn't know if heaven existed. We didn't know if she still existed. And that's a really terrifying place to be in when you lose a child. And even if it did exist, if she was a million miles away in heaven and I wasn't there, that wasn't okay either. So that wasn't even that comforting to me. And thinking that my relationship with her ended on that day and it wouldn't start back up until I passed away, which could be years and years, that wasn't comforting. There was just not a lot of comfort to be had around any of the topic, anything to do with death. And we had met a medium before she had passed away. Her name, she has since passed herself, but her name was Dana, or is Dana. And I had met her through an interesting way, and I trusted her. She was a relative of a friend of mine, and so I really felt comfortable with her. And so I reached out to her after Kennedy passed, and she said that she would do a reading for us. And she was the one that helped us feel connected and see the connection that we still had with Kennedy and really believe it in our hearts. And it was after that session that my husband and I looked at each other and we said, she's here. She still exists. And there was something that turned on inside of me because if she existed, and what she showed us is that she existed right here because she knew what was going on in our just day-to-day lives. It wasn't like she just showed up for a big event. It was she knew what happened the night before. So if she is here and she's right beside us, there had to be a way to feel her and to be more connected to her. And so that's really what sparked something inside of me, and I just kept going. And now I can look back and realize that it was her the whole time. It was her whispering how to find her again. And I was on a mission, and I did. I found her, and I'm living connected to her. The relationship still exists. It's much different, but it still exists. And when I was trying to be brave and launch 411, I was in a meditation and I was talking to her and I said, "You've got to give me something, honey. I've got to understand what this is on some level because I don't even know what to do, how to launch it." And she said, I heard, "You will build the thing, or this will be the thing you wished you could have found." And I just said, I'm in. And that's what I believe 411 is turning into, is the space that we wished we could have found. Because not only do we share stories of, we call them stories of connection. So they're the goosebump stories where we know that our loved ones are still here because something miraculous happens, those big aha moments. And those are so fun and so beautiful. And we're very honored to share those stories. But we also talk about different practices that everybody can do because, I thought you had to be a born medium to be able to connect with people across the veil. And that's just not the truth at all. And I just wish that I knew all of this. Not that it would have taken away all of the grief, but it could have softened some of the edges. And, one of the main pain points was thinking that we were officially disconnected and living this way, living with her, knowing that she's still here with me. It changes it. It changed how I grieve, but it changes how I live my life too, because I found her across the veil, but I found spirit guides and I found angels and I call them my spirit team. There's just this whole team that is with me, supporting me, helping me. And I just think life is better now. I think life is more magical. I think that, when I say the word magic, it's real magic. It's the day-to-day things that just bring tears to your eyes and fill your body with goosebumps, and you just think, I want more of that, whatever that magic is. So, how I look at it is I have one foot firmly planted on the earth, and I'm happy to be here living my life with my living children, my surviving two kids, because now I have a little boy too. So I'm focused on my family, my husband, my experiences here on earth. They're all beautiful, and the ups and downs and all the human stuff that I'm dealing with, I'm definitely enjoying that and living my life to the fullest here on earth. But I've got one foot across the veil, and that is where the magic really comes into the rest of my daily life. And so that's what I am shouting from the rooftops through 411 is that if people feel nudged to live like this, everybody can.
Yes, that's so powerful. And it certainly resonates with me because I guess one of the main reasons I keep this passion project podcast going is because I understand the power of these stories because people write to me and they say, and they might be a bereaved mum and they'll say the only thing that keeps me going is stories like this, and I just think there's such a place for it. So thank you for creating the platform and coming today to share your story, Rachel. It's so, so powerful. And I'm excited to hear more about how, this, I mean, firstly, I'm amazed at how you didn't have a spiritual kind of inkling before. You didn't really go that way, and everything that's opened up to you since. So you mentioned, discovering your spirit team and the guides and angels. It's so big. It's
It's
so
it's
big.
huge. And what's neat is that, and I love this even more than the fact that it happened to me, is that it happened to my husband. And he is we're both raised in this little farm town in Washington State and, in the United States. And he grew up fishing and hunting and riding dirt bikes. And he's, like an outdoorsman and just, I don't know, average guy, like super, we just always say that we're super average people. And so the fact that we both feel like these things opened up and that we live connected to her differently. I leaned into learning how to do energy healing. I took mediumship classes. I really leaned into how can I do this? And he's more of, hey, why don't you do that for me? Give me a reading, give me an energy healing. He's all for it, but he's like, he'll just lay back and relax and have me do it. But he's fully supportive of all of it. And we get to share the experiences that we both have from kind of different angles. And I love that. I love that through 411, I have men reaching out to us on social media, thanking Shane for letting them feel like there's a place for them and that they can open up and share their story because they saw Shane share his and maybe Shane got emotional and he was okay with it and he just honored it. And I just think that's really, really cool. And like you were saying with receiving the message, it's the
Mm.
same way with us. When we started this, we were like, if one person says that we help them with their grief journey, then that's it. That's why we're doing it. But we get those messages every day now. And it's really, really cool. It's just I believe that, I mean, Kennedy has showed me that she's guiding people to the page and it's just been wild to sit back and watch it all unfold. It's something, this is going to be something that it's just so transformative in my life. And I know that, if I live to be 80 years old and at the end when I look back, I'm going to think of 411 in these years and everything that I'm getting to feel and witness, I'm going to remember it fondly. This is something that I just believe that this is why I'm here.
Mm. Yeah, and I do also believe we really heal each other when we share our stories, like you were saying about the guys who get in touch and thank Shane for sharing. Like it is such a chain of healing that happens. I'd love to talk a little bit more about just the genesis of 411. And one thing that I wanted to ask you first up is what is the significance of the number 11 and the name? So four as in
Sure.
FOR, 11.
Yeah. So the name, it was funny when Shane said it's going to be called 411. He just had this download. And I said, that's perfect. And then the very next thing I said is, nobody's going to get it. Like, no, it's not a name that makes sense to anybody else. But we still knew that it was just right for us. And, of course, right after we came up with this name, now the number 411 shows up everywhere in our lives all day long, and it was the sign that our daughter would send us to help us on the journey to 411, what our next step would be and things like that. But before the magic number was 411, what happened was when she passed away, one of the first signs that she used to kind of get our attention was actually the number four, because her favorite number here on Earth was four. So we would notice those. But then they just kind of stopped, and my husband was the one that noticed that they turned to 11s. Like all of a sudden he was seeing 11 everywhere, and then I realized that I was seeing 11 everywhere as well. And we started thinking of 11 as kind of her angel number, that was somehow representing her in a new way. But what we realized is that she was sending us these 11s when we were doing things that, like letting us know we were on the right path.
Mm.
And it was usually things to do that were spiritual. And we had no idea what 11 represented in the spiritual world because we didn't know anything. So it was a long time later that we looked up what the number 11 means. And it represents, enlightenment. And it's this magical angel number. And it represents all these beautiful spiritual meanings, and you can take it however you want or put whatever meaning you want to it. But it's just a really powerful number, and we had no clue. And so, anyways, we started doing things for the 11s, is how we kind of looked at it. So we would take a course or read a book or listen to a podcast, and then we would get these 11s, and we're like, oh, we're on the right path. And so we just kept following the 11s. It was like her breadcrumbs for us. And so when my husband said that, it just represented her and it represented our journey. But we also thought about, the number 11 looks like two separate ones coming together, and it's, bringing all these people together and creating this 411 community. And that felt right to us. And there's just a lot of meaning behind it, kind of more than an easy explanation of what 411 means. And so I get that message all the time. What does 411 mean? I'm like, oh boy, let me get into it here. But it just has been something that has meant a lot to us, but I have realized that it means a lot to other people because when I explain it, people are like, oh, I totally understand that. And I have that with another number, or I have that with another sign. And so this was our sign. This was the thing that she sent us. But what's really neat, if I have a minute, I'll
Oh,
explain this to you.
I'd love you to.
So I'm sure you feel, well, I guess I can't say this. I'm assuming you feel the same way that sometimes we can look back in our life and realize that things were in motion way before we knew they were in motion. And that like we were meant to do something. And we now realize that 411 is one of those things for us. And the proof came when a friend of mine, shortly after Kenadie passed, so, a year and a half or so before 411 downloaded into Shane's mind, a friend of mine reached out. This was before I had learned how to connect with my daughter. And she said, I connected with Kenadie during a meditation. Are you okay with me sharing it? She said it was one of the most powerful things she'd ever witnessed. I was super jealous that she was able to connect with my daughter, but of course I wanted to hear what happened, and I was excited to hear, but I was hoping that someday I would learn how to do that myself. So she shared what she saw, and a very quick version of it is that Kenadie and I were sitting across from each other, and she said we were really happy. But the energy of it is that we were doing something together. And the moment that she realized that, she watched Kenadie turn into like her human form, changed into just a ball of energy, and it kind of flew into my heart space. And she explained this to me, and I thought, oh, that would be beautiful if at that time I didn't feel like I had a relationship with Kenadie still. And I thought, gosh, that would be beautiful if she and I could still have a relationship and feel like we're doing something together. And so, fast forward to years later, and we're getting ready to launch. And let's see, we launched 411 in 2023. So shortly before the launch, that friend is asking me about 411. And in the middle of the conversation, I say to her, just kind of out of the blue, I said, you know what? I said, that meditation that you had all those years ago, I wonder if this is what it was about. Because I think that Kenadie has been guiding us the whole time. I think she's a part of 411. And I think we're doing this together. And my friend, her eyes get really big and she said, do you have that message that I sent you? And I said, oh, yeah, I never delete anything. So I scrolled through years of messages and she sent that message to me on 411.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, pretty neat. So I knew then that this has always been the thing. This has been in the works way before we realized it.
How extraordinary. That's so beautiful. And I think it is such an interconnected web life, events,
Absolutely.
people, and spirit. It harnesses everything that we have to tell a story through us and to, I don't know, lead us on a path. It's enchanting. It really is enchanting. And when you were sharing earlier, sort of that sense of upliftment that you get from the stories and just how it makes life better. It's so true, Rachel. It is a beautiful, connected way to live. Yeah, just
Yeah,
I love
it's the
that.
only way I want to live, and I'm not perfect at it. I don't think that's the point. We're here, we're human,
Yeah.
we're gonna have some human struggles along the way, right? But the the thing about this is that in those ups and downs, I always have the tools in my back pocket. So I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any means. I should bring my husband on just for a minute. The last time I got snarky with them or something. But when I have those down times, I know how to get out of them more easily than I used to. Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I need to sit in it for a little bit and feel all the feels and honor where I'm at that day, if I'm mad or I'm sad or whatever. And that's okay too. And I honor that because, I still miss my daughter being here in the physical every day. I wish that I could just wrap my arms around her and give her a big hug. And as connected as I am to her, I can't do that. It's not the same. So I miss the old relationship that we had for sure. And so some days I go down the rabbit hole of, having a little pity party for myself, and I honor that. And I sit in it for however long I need to sit in it. And then she's just right beside me when I'm ready to get out of it. She's she never leaves my side. And that's another thing that I want to point out and make sure that that's my truth. And, it doesn't have to be everyone's, of course, but if there's a part of you that is sad thinking that your loved one kind of comes and goes and only shows up for the big events and they're busy off doing things in heaven and they're not with you all the time, that's not what I've learned at all. I've learned that my daughter is limitless and that she can be learning and she can be growing and she can be experiencing. I can't even imagine what she's experiencing on the other side. Just hopefully the most beautiful things you could ever dream of, and still be right here by my side through all of it. And that is very comforting to me. And she's proved it over and over. And I don't think it's not me holding her back. She's still getting to do all the magic. She's still getting to do everything that she wants to do. But she's also just right here because she wants to be. And I think that's the deal. I think our loved ones want to be a part of our lives as much as we want them to be. They're here if we want them to be. They'll let us, feel them and be connected with them, and they'll honor whatever we're wanting in our lives. And that is that brings me a lot of peace.
Mm, that's beautiful, and that limitless perspective. Yes, I also resonate with that, and I think it's throughout the various spiritual traditions and teachings as well, that the soul or the soul or the spiritual connection, both, they're limitless and they're multifaceted, and we can be there and we can be here, I guess, in the same way that you are there and here as well.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
people when we put limits on them, I hear people say that. They'll say, people will message me, or I'll even see a medium explaining to someone in a gallery reading situation, for instance. I just saw this. And they said, your loved one's not hanging around you all the time. They've got better things to do. And they're not meaning anything mean by that. The person was, we're all doing our best here. So, I know that they didn't mean anything by it, but I wanted to no, I wanted to send a message because the person they were saying that to, that might not be comforting to them. I just don't, it's easy for us to put those human limitations on our loved ones across the veil because that's all that we know. So every time I do that, I try to step back and go, no, that's what I expect from my human standpoint. I bet her version of whatever it is that I'm thinking about is way better. So that's how I try to look at things. And, I try to encourage the people within the 411 community to do the same if that feels good to them.
Yeah, it's an open posture. And I also wanted to honor what you said about the physical, the preciousness of the physical life as well and the physical world. I think that's really lovely and important that you shared that too, Rachel, just that, wanting to hug, because it reminds us that there's such purpose for our lives here on earth today as well. And anytime we can remember to hug someone we love is time well spent. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a beautiful, beautiful message. I thank you for saying that because
No, well, you
I couldn't
sparked
agree
it.
more. Well, I couldn't agree more with that. That is, I guess, it's an important thing to focus on that, or an important thing to get out there that even though I'm talking about living connected and I show up on these podcast interviews or in videos and I'm happy and I'm sharing a story and I'm so connected with my daughter, if the person that's watching this doesn't feel like that at all and they're just missing their loved one being here in the physical, and I could see where that energy wouldn't even resonate with them. They're just nowhere near that level. And so no, I maybe don't set up the camera and show people my deepest, darkest moments, but I talk about them. I try to be as open as I can and be honest and say, I still have those really dark days and really dark moments where I'm just overwhelmed with grief. There's ups and downs to it for sure, but definitely living connected to her and the practices that I've learned and the things that I can turn to, like I said, those tools in your back pocket help me get out of the depths, the darkness that grief can sometimes, encompass you in. And I'm grateful for that. I think of it as her shining her light into the darkness. And like I said, sometimes I want to sit in it. So sometimes I'm like, not today, honey. Like I'm in a bad mood and I just need to sit in it. But when the time comes, I let that light shine pretty bright.
Thank you. I think it would be a lovely moment if you're happy to share some of your favorite stories, the key stories of Kennedy's connection with you. And yeah, the floor's yours.
Oh gosh, there's so many. But the one of the ones that I loved so much is after she passed, I would see, well, both my husband and I, he didn't really have dreams of Kennedy, and I did. I had in the early days, I had a handful of visitation dreams when it was just so real, and I could touch her and I could hug her in the dreams, but I would feel kind of bad because he wasn't getting those sorts of experiences, and but the one dream that he also got to have involved this little boy there with Kennedy. And I was like, I saw him in a dream too. And then I saw him in a meditation. He kind of startled me. He kind of popped his head around a door in a meditation. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's a little boy. And I just knew it was my little boy. And I would have readings with different mediums. And they would always say, who's the little boy that is there with Kennedy? She says it's her little brother. Did you lose a son? And it was like, no, I think he's supposed to be coming to us. I think, at some point he's going to join our family. But Shane and I couldn't have more kids after we had our two girls. We tried, and for years we just couldn't have any more kids. And I went to a few different doctors, and there were two different specialists that said I would need to get help, medical intervention if I wanted to have more kids. And we had decided that we wouldn't do that. So I just kept thinking, well, that's strange because this little boy keeps showing up. And then a month after those two specialists told me that I couldn't have any more kids, I was home alone and I was hopping into the shower and I just heard Kennedy drop a message into my mind and she said, take a test, mommy. And I thought, no way. And sure enough, I was pregnant and then the next message that dropped in was, wait until tomorrow to tell daddy because the next day was her birthday. And so she wanted it to be her gift to her dad. She was really big on giving gifts when she was here in the physical. So it made total sense. And so we got to tell Shane the next day. And a few days, or, maybe a few weeks later, I was sad thinking about coming home with this baby and Mila, our daughter that's here with us, she was going to get to hold him, but I kept thinking that Kennedy wasn't going to be holding him, and I was just really sad about that thought. And all of a sudden, I felt nudged to go to the store that I've never been to. It's a home goods type store, and I've never been there before. And I asked Shane to pull over. So we go inside, and we're just walking the aisles, and he said, what are we looking for? And I said, I don't know. I'll know when I see it. And we turned the corner and there was this painting, there was this artwork in front of me. And it was this angel with light brown hair. And she's holding this little baby in her arms. And I said, that's what we're here for. And that was Kennedy reminding me that she's already held him. She's been with him for years. And, of course I knew that. It was just a beautiful reminder. And so that's just one connection moment that I had with her that will always stick with me. But, I have those sorts of moments with her all the time.
And you were saying that you and your husband both dreamt of Kennedy with this little boy.
Yeah, in
That's
fact, the
extraordinary.
dream that my husband had, she was in our living room here, and she was just sitting on the floor. She had her back against the couch, and this little boy, toddler-ish age, maybe 2, 3, was climbing all over her. And she was looking at Shane in this dream, and she was smiling, but she was like a little bit annoyed because, like a big sister would be, because he's just climbing all over her. But Shane could feel her love for him, but it was like, oh, I love him, but he's so annoying. And it was just, like I said, very big sisterly, but in like the cutest way. And he woke up and he said, I dreamt of Kennedy last night, and I lost it. It was just such an emotional experience. And he said, and I got to meet our little boy. I couldn't believe it. It was really, really special.
That is so beautiful, and I just was covered in goosebumps as you were sharing those stories. And that those kinds of stories are truly, I mean, they don't leave room for doubt. As a listener listening to you, it feels like they don't leave room for doubt. But but I know that there are community members listening who will say, "Oh, sometimes I think something could be a sign or a connection, but I'm not sure." What would you say, Rachel, about knowing that discernment between something that we could potentially perceive to be wishful thinking and something that is a true connection?
Well, there's a couple different points that I like to make with this. One is there really is, on some level, especially once you're doing this enough, there is a different feeling that comes over you at certain times. The full goosebump, full body chills and things like that, where you just know. But there's other times where, you might get a warm feeling, tears might come to your eyes. There's just an energy around these experiences that feel like a little extra love is there. And it's just a simple knowing at some point. But I also like to point this out because I didn't always hear this. I think that it's very, very human to want to know if it's real. Also, what does it mean? There's just all these, and you can really focus on that side of it. And I just try to encourage people, if something happens that makes you think of your loved one, it's okay if it was just a coincidence because it opens up the door to connection. And I am all about connection. So, for instance, a woman last night sent me a message through 411. She said she was watching, she has lost her brother, her husband has lost his brother. So, she's thinking about them. She's watching a TV episode, or the TV's on in the background. She's reading a article. As she read this one phrase, that's like a pretty random phrase, as she read the words, the TV repeated the same exact words at the same exact moment. And it had nothing to do with her brothers. It's not like it was some special meaning. It was just a weird experience that like caught her attention. And and she was like, kind of wondering what that meant. And I'm like, please use that as an opportunity to just smile, close your eyes if you want, put your hands on your heart and say, I feel you. I know you're here. I know that was you. Thank you so much. And I am open for more. Like, use that as a moment. I call those little micro moments of connection because sure, you can do the big things. You can meditate, do energy healings and sound baths, and you can do these big connection type experiences. But if you do a meditation in the morning and then you're cut off for the rest of the day, just going along with your daily activities and your mind's just racing a million miles a minute and you're on social media all day and you're watching TV and you're doing all these things and you're not allowing in those micro moments of connection, you're going to feel overall pretty disconnected. And so when something like that happens, I just think, just accept it. Accept that even if it was a coincidence, what's neat is if you kind of let that go and you just say, maybe that was you. And if it was, that's awesome. Let's do it more. That coincidence that you would have just pushed away, like, oh, that was just a coincidence. Maybe that same thing happens day after day after day. And after you accept it once, then you see it so many times that all of a sudden there's proof. There's enough proof that you don't doubt it anymore. So when the
Mm.
doubt is there, I say lean into it, and I say just use that as a reminder to say hi to them and connect with them, even if it's just for a brief moment, and then tell them that you want more. Say, hey, I love that, but next time bring along a little more proof for me, because you know I'm a skeptic. So bring some proof along and see what happens next.
Thank you. That's so helpful. And something that really comes through as you share, Rachel, is your own openness and willingness. And that truly does seem to be the key that unlocks more experience, deeper experiences. And a word that you've used often today is nudges. And you seem to have a facility, or maybe it's innate, or maybe you cultivated it, but to follow nudges. And like you even did it to follow the nudge to this store that you'd never been to, and there was this painting. So, and that it just seems like such an important piece of the connection puzzle, because if you had not followed that seemingly illogical, random nudge, you wouldn't have come to that painting, which is what Kenadie wanted to show you. I am holding him, I've held him, I hold him. So,
Right.
do you have anything to share around helping others trust themselves more to follow what might seem like the subtlest nudge? Because often those callings, those nudges, they are so whisper soft, aren't they?
Well, that's the thing with this communication is that it is in the whispers because we share the stories of connection that are those big aha moments that I was talking about earlier. Those are hard to miss. Those ones are the big, you almost have to be a skeptic of some of these stories. You have to try pretty hard because these stories are miraculous. And the thing is that those types of moments don't happen every day because it's very soft, it's very subtle, it's very much your own thoughts that pop in. It sounds like it's you. It feels like your own thought. That's where practicing, the things that we talked about, the meditating and uh, just getting quiet, just even to, taking a bath, doing something where you're turning off kind of the outside world and you're just relaxing and seeing what comes up. I feel like that's important because the world is so loud and they are so soft. They are so quiet. And that's the trick to the new kind of language that we have to learn with them is that it, it is like they're whispering in your ear and you just go, whoa, why do I feel like going into that store that I've never been to? And it's really easy to ignore. And so you just have to, I guess, kind of follow your gut, kind of follow those whispers. If you feel, like nudged, I say that a lot. If you feel nudged to go to a different grocery store than you normally go to, check it out. What does it hurt? If nothing comes of it, that's okay too. But if you go to the new grocery store and you run into someone and a magical experience happens that wouldn't have happened if you went to your normal grocery store, you're going to know afterwards that that's why you were there. And once it happens a few times, then it feels a little easier. Like the more that you let in those micro moments of connection, the more you just kind of live your life connected. So now I can be driving down the road, very focused on the road, safely driving down the road, and I can get a drop in. Like I heard, well, actually, I saw a deer out of the corner of my eye and heard the word deer. And so much so that I thought a deer was right there. And there wasn't. And it was a clear cut. I could see for a long ways. There was no deer, but I knew I needed to slow down. And I slowed down, and sure enough, down the road around the corner, in the middle of the corner, in the middle of my lane was a deer. And I know that that was them warning me because I would have hit it or swerved around it or something. And so and I was probably driving a little bit too fast and just not paying attention. It's on the road that I live on, so I'm very comfortable on the road, and it's a country road, so there's never any traffic or anything. And I just feel like that's what living connected turns into, is to where they can reach you even when you're listening to the radio in the car, thinking about work and thinking about all the other things, and all of a sudden you just see this deer and You know that you need to slow down. And that's when that's when I realized it was like that moment. I'm like, wow, I really am living connected like on a regular basis. And it's changed everything.
It's changed everything. That's so powerful. And it is so fundamental what you share to around creating that space to tune into yourself and to tune into spirit because I love what you said. They're whisper soft and the world is so loud. Like we really do have to willingly cultivate. And I love how you make it accessible too. Like it's if somebody's not au fait with the term meditation or that it's not something that's been in their practice, they don't even have to think of it as that. It can just be, like you said, running a bath and or
Yeah.
stepping out onto the back porch and just sitting for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, going for a walk out in nature is a great way to connect. You know, leave
Yeah.
your phone in your pocket or at home or whatever. Don't have, don't be plugged in. Just really walk around in nature and pay attention to what's around you and talk about instantly connected. I mean, for me, it's my husband as well. He's really good at and my daughter Mila, that is my daughter here on Earth, she gets overwhelmed, she just gets up and goes outside. It's like she just knows that that's where she needs to go. And my husband is the same way. And there's times where he'll look at me and go, maybe you should go for a walk. As I'm a little wrapped up in something. And it's like, you're right, I do. I need to just go outside and take some deep breaths and just reconnect. And I love that that's accessible to all of us. I mean, you can be in the middle of a city and find a way to go outside and feel more connected. You might have to work a little harder at it, but it's there for everyone.
Yeah, and one of the things I sometimes even do just in the office on my office days, if I'm getting a little bit flustered, I will just go and hide in the ladies for a minute, and hopefully there's
Yeah.
no one else there in the stalls. And I know it sounds a bit odd, but I'll just recenter for a minute, just in the
Oh,
quiet.
absolutely.
And yeah, sometimes if that's all that's available, it just helps. I'll say a little prayer. For me, prayer is simply an intention of love and of healing, and I just remind
Beautiful.
myself that I'm connected and that there's support. And
I
yeah,
love that.
so
There's so many ways to do that. You can wear a piece of jewelry that you set an intention that every time you look at that piece of jewelry, you do some sort of little practice. You can say a prayer. You can put your hand on your heart and say, I love you, honey, to your loved one across the veil and just feel connected to them in that moment. You can just, set a practice of gratitude. Every time I see that bracelet, I'm going to put my hand on my heart and just be thankful for something in that moment and just
mm,
see what that does to your energy and like you said, it's creating those moments where you're going within and you don't have to do it with an hour-long meditation every morning. It's not necessary. If you're feeling called to do that, give it a whirl. I'm sure you will have amazing experiences if you're regularly meditating, but you don't have to.
yeah, that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned the big aha stories, and I'd love to know what are your favorites, either from the community that you've created, Rachel, or from your own experiences with Kenadie. What's
Oh
your
gosh.
favorite? One or two of your
Oh,
favorite big aha
I
stories?
should. Before I do these interviews, I need to go back through my list of stories and pick one because everybody always asks, and I always think of like the same three, even
I
just
do
because
that
they're my
too, don't
go-to.
worry.
But they're all so magical. But oh, okay, there's one that I shared recently that was just it was really beautiful. Um, hopefully I don't get the details mixed up too much, but a woman reached out and let us know that her mom passed away in the hospital, and her mom and dad had been together for 50 something, 60 years, a very long time. And the moment that her mom passed away, her father dropped to the ground with a heart attack. Now, they resuscitated him because he was in the hospital. So he ended up surviving that heart attack. But when he came to, his arm was twitching. And it took them a few months to figure out what was going on, but they found out that he had ALS. And so his body was deteriorating. Obviously, he's in heavy grief of losing his wife, and he decided to, he chose to pass with dignity. I don't know, it's called different things in different countries, so I can't remember what it was called. Because of that, his religion didn't, I think the priest wouldn't come and give him his last rites because of how he chose to pass. And so after he passed, his daughter is watching these videos on our page, and she was, well, maybe I can ask my dad for a sign. And she wanted to know, she wanted to reach out to God and to her dad, and she wanted to know that not only, was he there and she wanted a sign, proof that he's still existing, but she wanted to know that he was okay and that he was allowed in heaven. And so she had just seen a story where someone had asked for something to do with a blue balloon. So she said, can you send me a blue balloon? So the next day she goes to work. She's a teacher. And it's towards the end of the day. There's no kids outside. Recess is all done. Everybody's in the classroom, and her class is just reading. And a little kiddo looks out the window and says, "How did that get there?" And she goes to the window and she got video of it and sent it to us. And I cry every time I look at it. It's hard to get through. There's this blue balloon bouncing across the top of the rooftop of the building next to hers. And she has no explanation for how that got there. There's nobody out during that time, and it's just bouncing along. She knew that her dad was okay and that he sent that sign. So she goes home that night and she said, "Okay, now I want one from mom." She said, hopefully I'm not annoying you guys too much, which just cracks me up. And so she said, "Can I get a pink balloon from mom?" So she goes to work the next day, and she's the person that greets the kids at the gate every morning. And she'd been doing that for years at the time, and she had never witnessed what she saw the next day. But a little kiddo was walking up to the gate, and they had two balloons in their hand, just out of the blue, no reason for them to bring it to school. One was pink and one was blue. And she just knew that not only are they both okay, but they're together. And that story just brought me so much joy to share that. It's just not joy, I am just honored. That is such a sacred experience. And she was open about all of that and all of the details of it. And I just thought, for all the people out there that worry that there's some sort of boundary between our loved ones and heaven, how that story just brought her that much peace in just a split second of a balloon bouncing across a rooftop is something that I'm just in total awe of. And the fact that I got to be a little part of sharing that is just, like I said, it's just an honor. And I love it so much. And so, anyways, that's one of my favorites that are just a recent one, but all of the stories are like that. They're just miraculous. And then what's neat is that we share the story, and then people like her, she had a story that came from another story and that the connection just keeps going and going, and it's just incredible. And then sometimes we share stories that we received months earlier, and we just randomly pick a day and we share stories, and we share a story, and it's so often that something magical happens that day. And just the other day, yesterday or the day before, we shared a story, and the woman, we shared multiple stories through our YouTube channel. We did a longer video that was multiple stories. This woman that follows us at lunchtime, she noticed the video pop up. She decides to watch it. She was crying. She was having a really hard day at work. And she watched the first two stories, and then she hit pause. And she was saying to her dad across the veil, "I just wish I could get a hug from you. She just really needed him that day. She was having such a hard day." And she pressed play, and the next thing she heard was her name. And it was her story about her dad that we shared next, and she just hadn't received the email that we had let her know that her story was shared, but she hadn't seen that yet. And she said, "He gave me a hug." And I just like, yes, please give me all of the magic. And I just get to, so then she reached out and let us know that, let us share that part of it. And I will never get sick of this. I just want to just bask in it. Like I can just take this magic all day, every day. And it brings me so much joy and love and excitement and all the good emotions that you want to feel in your day. That's what these stories and these experiences do.
Thank you so much. They were beautiful. And it's clear as you share, Rachel, that this is a co-creation, this project, and that it's supporting you as much as you creating the platform is supporting the community that you created. It's just so lovely. And I echo what you say. I too can never get sick of this. I'll keep going because it is just, it's, I guess the word awe that you said before sums it up most closely. It's awe and reverence that I feel,
Mm.
and wonder,
Yes.
when you share. And these are the sentiments, emotions, the feelings that are hard to get to in this life at the moment, especially with how dark, so many world events the world is for us at the moment. It seems to be in
Absolutely.
a state of transition, but that is so lovely. And I'm trying to think, because I'd like to touch briefly before we are reaching the end of our conversation, but I'd love to touch briefly on what you mentioned earlier about how this connection and creating this community has also led you to a closer connection to your own spirit team and your guides and your angels. And I'd love if you could just share a little bit about that before we begin to wrap up.
Well, actually, before I felt like I connected with my daughter, I was doing different things to try to find her. And for a long time, nothing happened. I didn't, which is a good thing to share and talk about too, that it happens in its time when it's going to be different for everybody. The connection journey is different for everyone for different reasons, and mine took, it felt like eternity. But before I found her, I felt connected to my spirit guide was the first person or being that I connected with in a meditation. Blew me away. I couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. And then I was connected to angels through energy work. And then I started doing, I learned how to do that energy work myself because it was just such a life-changing experience. And then my husband had a session and it changed his life. He got done with the session, tears were streaming down his face, and the first thing he said is, "That just changed my life." And he was going through his darkest time after Kennedy's passing, and what he experienced changed everything for him. And just knowing that there's angels there to help us, and I get to see them and feel them and work with them. Like, how cool is that? And so I am all for that. And so I got to meet them first. And I even felt like, and this is, probably a whole nother podcast, but I even felt like I got to meet and connect with Jesus. And that I met my spirit guide and I was blown away, but I totally accepted that. And then I met angels, blown away, but totally accepted that. And then Jesus shows up and I'm like, well, that's weird. For whatever reason, that one was harder for me. Maybe because I don't have a religious background. So it was kind of like, why are you a part of this experience that I'm having? And now he's right beside Kenadie in everything that I do. And I have such love for him, and I am so grateful that he's a part of my spirit team. And I know that he doesn't have to be, but that's my path. And I can look back now and realize that that was always the path. I was always going to be introduced to him through spirituality and through my daughter. And in fact, she introduced us to him. She had a dream before she passed, a couple years before she passed. She had a dream with Jesus in it. And that was my first. I was like, was that Jesus? I remember looking at my husband after she walked away and I said, was that Jesus? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, Wow. And he promised her that he would stand by her through the storm that was coming. And it was it was pretty cool, pretty neat experience. And so anyway, I connected with all these different beings, and then my daughter showed up, and I realized, of course, I had to meet them first because if I met Kenadie first, I would have shut myself off to everybody else because that was my goal. That was the only person that I cared about, and the only person that I wanted to be connected with. But this spirit team that supports me, the beauty that comes from the support from all of them is just life changing. I mean, I keep saying that, but I'm serious. This has changed the direction of my life. It's changed how I live my life and how I grieve, not just being connected to my daughter across the veil, but the whole spirit team that supports me. And that's what I really like to get across to everybody is that we all have a team that we can work with if we want to. And I love knowing that. And I love the times that they show up and the cool experiences that I've had where I know that they're there and that they had my back through the good times and the bad times and all of that. And it's just, again, very comforting to me.
Wow, that is so profound. And uh, it reminds me of many interviews that I have done with near-death experiences and interviews I've listened to as well, that Jesus seems to have a particular role in children's lives as well as a comforter. And that is something that I've heard come up time and again. So it's really fascinating. And even more fascinating given that you didn't have a religious background. I think that's really interesting when that happens and
Yeah,
a being that we associate with religion. But I think that that is a human thing that we've done, associate him with
I
religion.
agree.
We created it. Like he
I
came with a
agree.
message, he came with a message that
Yeah.
God and love is within us. And
Hmm.
yeah, so it's very, very interesting. Thank you. That's beautiful. I wonder
Yeah.
if you can share a little bit about what's next for you and your partnership with Kenadie in this evolution of this beautiful platform that you've created together, all of you as a family.
Well, we're right there. The next step is just right in front of us, and we're really excited that we're creating a 411 community. So within the community will be, you know, these practices that I talk about and the energy healings and all of the things that we have done that has helped us with our connection journey. We wanted that to be easily accessible to everyone. And we couldn't quite figure out what that looked like. We just knew that that's what we were being called to do. And I remember, I mean, I could see it. I just couldn't see how to get there. And I was getting very frustrated with my team because I thought, I'm here, I'm showing up every day, I'm taking the next step, and I just want to serve this community in a new way. And I don't know how to do it. I don't have the tools. Like, where's the person that's supposed to be helping me with this? And sure enough, the person showed up and in the most magical fashion that you could ever imagine. I mean, it was just, I had a dream that morning and that it was just one thing after another. And this person shows up and I just know. And I'm talking to her and she goes, "Tell me your dreams." And, I'd had this dream. It goes on and on. That's for the next, we should chat again. But,
We should.
but I open up to her and I tell her my dream with this community and how I see myself being a part of it and serving it, and Shane right beside me and Kenadie right there. And I said, I tell her everything. I didn't hold anything back. I told her my biggest dreams with it. And then I get done and I said, but I don't know how to do any of it. And she just looks at me, she raises her hand, she goes, "I know how to do all of that." And she's helping me every step of the way. And we are like inches away from launching this community. And um, I'm just right before we got on here, I was talking to that woman on the phone. She lives in Canada, and I'm in the U.S., so we always just chat by phone. And I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm coming out and telling my husband, giving him big hugs, and we're celebrating. And then I'm like, oh gosh, now I've got my interview. I need to try to like get myself together. It's just it feels like this is it. This is
Mm.
just feels like it's a really important next step that we're almost there, and I'm excited. I can't wait.
Well, I will share the links to all of your platforms in the show notes. It feels like such an exciting, momentous time to speak with you today in terms of the evolution of 411. I'm so honored. I'm so grateful for your presence today on the show, Rachel. I absolutely agree. We must connect again, and they'll show us when, and we'll
Yes.
just we'll just go, okay. And
I'm a talker, so I've got lots of stories.
love it, love it. Um, the last question I'm going to ask you today is one that I close all of my conversations with in, and it is, what can an encounter with spirit teach us about actually living here today?
Oh, goodness. Oh, wow. I feel like an encounter across the veil with them is teaching me how to live my life to the fullest, just how to focus more on the things that really matter and open myself up to that magic that I talked about, that 1 foot here and 1 foot there. And I think that, encountering them, they can remind us how we can do that. They can remind us how we're all connected and how we can all live, choose to live differently than I think most of us are taught to live. I mean, for me, I was not taught any of this. And talking with them, connecting with them, they can show you how their magic across the veil can exist here on earth and how we can welcome it into our lives and how beautiful it can be while we're here on earth, experiencing the things that we came here to experience, but to the fullest potential possible and stop holding ourselves back and all the things with all the human stuff, they can show us how to do it in the best fashion. And that's why I want to be connected to them and I want them to kind of guide me and show me the way because they get the bigger picture. And I'm just doing the thing here on earth the best that I can, but I am fumbling through life like we all are. And they know the bigger picture, so they can help me see it a little bit through their eyes, and that's what I want.
What a beautiful response. Thank you so much, Rachel. I think your kindness, your courage, Kenadie's presence and I can feel her with us and smiling over you today. And it's just so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the Spirit Sisters podcast.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me. And, I'll come back anytime. And I would love for you to do some talking because I know that's the point is that we're supposed to share. But now, I just want to hear your stories. So maybe we can roles reverse someday.
Absolutely. I can feel that coming. Yeah. As
Yeah.
you evolve your community. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that would
I'd
be
love
that would
to.
be beautiful. I'm
I'd
looking
be,
forward to it. I'm marking it on the calendar, right?
I'd be honored. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Sisters. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. And don't forget to rate and review the show. Have an experience you'd like to share with me? Get in touch at my website, karinamachado.com, or find me on Facebook at Karina Machado Author. After all, there's nothing more powerful than a story.